The Shema, Hebrew for listen or obey, from Deuteronomy 6:4, cited by Jesus in Mark 12, teaches the strictest form of unitary monotheism. That is, the one Lord, the God of Israel, is one single, non-human divine person, which means Jews have never been and are not Trinitarians. These are matters of undeniable facts revealed to us both by scripture and history, as I will prove. So to even suggest that the Shema is or ever was Trinitarian is quite unbelievable. From the Old to the New Testament, the name of the one God of Israel and titles used to describe him, for example, Hebrew Yahweh, Adonai Elohim, in Greek Kyrios or Theos, reveal one person. He is described by the Old Testament prophets as the one who alone is the creator and father of all. Malachi 2:10, do we not all have one Father? Did not one God create us? Note, for the prophet, the one Father equals one God. Isaiah 44, verse 24, I am the Lord, who made all things, who alone stretched out the heavens, who spread out the earth, by myself. Some manuscripts even add the question, who was with me? The answer to these rhetorical questions is that no one other than the one Lord, Yahweh the Father, he by himself made the original Genesis creation. Now ask yourself, how many persons or how many selves is one God, or I am the Lord who alone by myself? According to Brown, Driver, and Briggs' lexicon, the Hebrew word rendered alone in Isaiah 44:24 means in a state of separation by one's self. Again, how many selves is one self? In the New Testament, Jesus refers to that same one Lord, one God the Father, as the one God or the only God, John 5:44, the only true God, John 17:3, my God, John 20:17, and 5 times in Revelation 3, and the Lord our God, says Jesus in Mark 12:29, quoting here from the Shema of Deuteronomy 6:4. The noted Trinitarian scholar J.A.T. Robinson was right to say John is as undeviating a witness as any New Testament writer to the unitary monotheism of Judaism. Another noted British scholar, Bishop N.T. Wright, says the answer Jesus gave in Mark 12:29 was thoroughly non-controversial. In other words, Jesus was a first-century Jewish monotheist. The same was true of the Jewish scribe who agreed with Jesus in Mark 12. You are right, teacher. You have truly said that he is one and there is no other besides him, and to love him with all your heart. Note the cardinal masculine numeral 1 in Greek is, and the singular verb he is, estin, meaning the one Lord of the Shema is only one person. The Bible uses tens of thousands of singular masculine verbs, pronouns, and adjectives for the one Lord of the Shema. And, as we all know, these denote one single individual. Furthermore, Greek lexicons note the word for one is masculine in gender and therefore is personal, referring to a person. Vincent's Word Studies agrees, saying the Greek masculine is means one person. And Thayer's Greek lexicon states where the word is takes the place of a predicate. For example, Galatians 3:20, this means one person. Note the Amplified Bible Classic Edition paraphrase of this verse as God is only one person. The language of Scripture undeniably proves the Shema was then, as it still is, Unitarian, according to the noted Anglican priest Leonard Hodgson. And the New International Dictionary of New Testament Theology says Jesus himself made the fundamental confession of Judaism his own and expressly quoted the Shema. This guaranteed continuity between the Old and the New Covenant. The scriptures witness to the unitary monotheism of the Shema is supported by the fact that, at one time in history, Trinitarians banned Jews from reciting the Shema because they saw it as a denial of the Trinity. This sad story began centuries after the New Testament, when 3 Roman emperors made Nicene Christianity the Roman state religion. On February 27, 380 AD, Theodosius I, Gratian, and Valentinian II issued an edict from the Greek city of Thessaloniki that said that those who do not believe in the Trinity will suffer in the first place the chastisement of the divine condemnation, and in the second the punishment of our authority, which in accordance with the will of heaven we shall decide to inflict. The law led to the banishment of so-called adoptionists, Arians, and oneness or modalist Christians from across the known empire. This law also heightened harsher anti-Semitic legislation via the so-called Servitude of the Jews Code, enacted by another emperor called Justinian I. This new law included forced Jewish conversions and the outlawing of the Hebrew language in favor of the Greek. According to the Cambridge History of Judaism, during the Byzantine period, starting in the 4th century, guards were sent to synagogues to prevent recitations that were thought to impugn, if only implicitly, the Christian notion of the Trinity. The noted American rabbi and Jewish historian Abraham Milgram records that the Jews' vociferous recitation of the Shema at each morning and evening service was, the church felt, a deliberate challenge to the Christian dogma of the Trinity. Justinian thus struck at the heart of Jewish worship. Milgram says Jews were only allowed to recite religious poems devoted to the praise of God, like the Kedusha. The latter was condoned because Christians saw in the threefold sanctification of God, holy, holy, holy is the Lord of hosts, a hint of the Trinity. But later, even such prayers became a source of conflict with the Christians. According to another historian, Ronald Eisenberg, Trinitarians realized that the Jews failed to perceive it as a reference to the Trinity. When the Christians prohibited the recitation of the Kedusha, the Jews simply inserted it into another prayer. This one had the advantage of being recited at a time when the government censors were not in attendance. Ironically, the Christian banning of the Shema lasted until Muslim armies from Saudi Arabia liberated most of the Middle East and Persia in the 7th to 8th centuries. Talmudic tradition and other writings from the time astonishingly record that under Islamic rule, the Jews were once again allowed to practice their religion without hindrance. One 8th century Talmudic scholar recorded that God had destroyed the kingdom of Edom, that is Rome, and its decrees were annulled. The Ishmaelites, Arabs, came and permitted Jews to study the Torah and recite the Shema and to pray. Reformed evangelical scholar Harold Brown, in his book Heresies, describes the transition within biblical monotheism itself from the unitary monotheism of Israel to the Trinitarianism of the Council of Chalcedon. The difference is symbolized by the transition from the prayer Shema Yisrael of Deuteronomy 6:4 to the confession of the Athanasian Creed, we worship one God in Trinity and Trinity in unity. The Jewish writer Pinchas Lapid, in his dialogue with the noted German Trinitarian scholar Jürgen Moltmann, was right to say whoever knows the development of the history of dogma knows that the image of God in the primitive church was unitary, and only in the 2nd century did it gradually, against the doctrine of subordinationism, become binary. And another Trinitarian scholar, the Reverend John Whale, in his book on Christian doctrine, the systematic thought of the church inevitably involved a further definition of monotheism, an elaboration of the unitary conception of the Godhead. Christian thought, working with the data of the New Testament and using Greek philosophy as its instrument, constructed the doctrine of Trinity in unity. John Well rightly concluded that the popular view of the Trinity has often been a veiled tritheism. Again, to even suggest the Shema is Trinitarian would have to mean that Jesus and the agreeable scribe of Mark 12 and Jews were or are Trinitarians. This is biblically and historically indefensible.